Hello and welcome. My name is Joanna Perez, Digital Marketing Specialist with IEEE Educational Activities. IEEE is the world's largest technical professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. Before we begin, please note a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen are engagement tools you can use. All tools are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to make the most out of your space. Note that we recommend using a wired internet connection to access today's presentation and closing any programs or browser sessions running in the background that can cause issues. There is no dial-in number for this event. Please make sure your computer speakers or headsets are turned on and the volume is up so that you can hear our presenters. You can find additional answers to some common technical issues in the orange question mark help tool at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions for today's presenters, you can submit them through the Q&A widget on your screen, or click the purple Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many questions as time allows. If you click the green resources icon at the bottom of your screen, you'll find more information about today's event and future events. Finally, the on-demand link for today's event will be emailed to all registrants approximately 2 hours after today's session. If you would like to tweet about this event, please use the hashtag IEEE Learn. Our virtual event today is IEEE Tech Talk, Student and Child Data Privacy. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Jennifer Fong.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Fong, and I am the Director of Education Products here at IEEE, and I am super thrilled today to share this really important topic with you on student and child data and wellness in this time when lots of kids are going online and spending far more time online. This is such an important topic, and so we are delighted today to welcome Marceline Hancock from Stanford Media X and also the IEEE 7004 Series Standards Working Group Chair, and also Michael Rich, who is the Director of the Center on Media and Child Health, the Director of Video Intervention, Prevention Assessment at Boston Children's Hospital, Associate Professor of Pediatrics at Harvard Medical School, Associate Professor of Social and Behavioral Sciences and at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. So we have some amazing speakers today and so excited to share this with you. So we are going to start because we'd love to find out who is here today. So if you could just take a moment to answer the poll question that is on your screen. What is your role? Are you an educator? Are you a parent? Are you a student? Or are you a working professional? What is your role and what are you experiencing today? So if you can just go ahead and take a minute to click on the button that best describes your role, and then hit that submit button, and we will see what our answers are. And we've got 85% today are educators, and then a few working professionals here too. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to our speakers and take it away. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to talk to you this morning, and please feel my gratitude for your work in education. It's never been more challenging than right now, and we've never had to quickly throw ourselves into a technology situation the way we have with COVID. So please feel every ounce of empathy that I have for you and gratitude, and anything that we can do at IEEE to help make your job easier about how to implement technology in a way that's ethical and also compliant. Some guidance around that. Really happy with the work at 7004. And today I'm very grateful for the chance to talk to you about what we can do to help protect our children and also help them to thrive in this time where we're actually throwing them into new environments. And we've been forced as educators to implement new teaching techniques that we've never had to fully implement and digitize every aspect of the education experience. And then when we consider that our children are at home with parents working from home, I've been on so many conference calls with mom on this side, dad on that side, toddler in the middle. They're trying to do their work and provide a loving environment. So there's help and hope for you. And today we're going to talk about these aspects of how to better manage and create a better technical background with the data and also the human side. And I'm really excited to share this time with Dr. Michael Rich, and I'll talk about that briefly. So 91%, we're all home. I'm home on the farm with my mother, and this is her beautiful library. So I was not in my Palo Alto teeny tiny space. But we're home, and we've never had so many children, their education disrupted. UNESCO says 91% of the world's population has been disrupted by COVID. So our mission today, and really our mission, at least I feel like my mission in life, is to support and create safe and healthy and effective online interactions. And that's been the focus of my career, and that's definitely the focus of Dr. Rich with his Center on Media and Child Health. Now, we've never had these competing demands between what we have to do at home for work, and we are doing it without supportive child care and without camp, without outside activities, without sports coaches and playing and all the lessons that our kids learn when they're out and running around, without our musical groups. I play the violin. It's killing me not to be able to play in my ensembles because it's such an important part. So here we are in this great petri dish together, and I'm confident we'll come out of this stronger and with better skills, and we can reset many things. So here's the environment. We have competing demands. We're working from home on the same devices in the same space as our children. And then as parents, we're also trying to parent and not have our children, like squished, squashed, and damaged. So we're thinking, what are the opportunities to make a better experience? Because this is pretty tough on everybody. So as we end, and as we consider at the end of this webinar, we want to think about what is the impact and what can we do to improve our student outcomes and promote positive relationships at home. Because sometimes, I don't know about you and my children, sometimes there's some changes of opinion and some tug and war about how and when to do schoolwork and really online life learning. So when I had this great conversation with IEEE, with the Jennifers that are helping to direct this education effort, I said, I would so love to talk to everyone at all about Dr. Michael Rich and his Center on Media and Child Health. And he has the first digital wellness lab. I met him years ago. The president of the AMA said to me, Marcely, if you're working with online safety, you must meet the most respected leading pediatrician who focuses on children and media, and he uses only scientific background and scientific evidence, so we don't have to worry so much about a PR. It's what does science tell us helps us to have children that are healthy and well using media and in a digital environment. And so, I don't know, I think it was 2004, we started working together, and from that time, it has been such a pleasure, and I've learned so many things. So, Dr. Rich, I am absolutely thrilled that you're here and available. And for those of you who are managing the data, don't worry. I will also talk about how to responsibly and ethically get children online. But I wanted to make sure we had two sides of this coin. What do we need to do to reduce the risks with data and with the child's experience and behavior? And what can we do to maximize opportunities? And that public health lens has helped me. And I have learned this through working with the Center on Media and Child Health with Dr. Rich. So Dr. Rich, thank you.
Thank you, Marcely. We're going to play a little tag team in this presentation so that we'll bounce it back and forth between the two of us. But I wanted to start with what we all see, not just in COVID, but before this as well. And the instant response for many people, lost my child to the internet. You have to take a step. Interactive online media actually provide a really fertile environment for some of the key developmental tasks of young people. The first is to acquire experience, which they get vicariously through online experiences, through gaming. They are seeking autonomy. They are becoming individuals, separate and different from their parents. They are becoming aware of the world outside themselves and their nuclear family, becoming socially conscious. And online, they can find people with whom they agree, with whom they can bond. They are building their identities, again, separate from but connected to parents, friends, community. And finally, they seek connection. Social media, Facebook in particular, is now the largest nation are the size of China every month. And we have to take that quite seriously, not as a threat, but also as an opportunity, as it possibly being an instrument for peace, a way of connecting us as a global community as opposed to our regional identities. So one of the projects of the Digital Wellness Lab and the Center on Media and Child Health is the Growing Up Digital, or GOOD project, which started in Alberta, Canada. And we are following several thousand children in 2 cohorts, starting at ages 2 to 4 and starting at ages 12 to 14. And we are following them with a deep dive of not just their active use of screens, but their ambient exposure to screens, as well as a whole host of health and developmental outcomes, including and we have run this in Alberta for several years now. We have just gotten our first stage results from Australia, and the ultimate goal, working in partnership with Sesame Workshop, is to do global good, as opposed to just good Alberta and good Australia. We're doing a site in each of the 6 populated continents, and following these children over 10 years to really be able to map the trajectories of their screen exposure and use, but also the trajectories of their development. So we are not just locked into cross-sectional studies of, say, hey, guess what? Kids who play violent video games are more aggressive than kids who aren't. We don't know if that is causal, contributory, or unrelated. Time. So this is some early results on what we found in Alberta. First of all, teachers have been using digital technologies to provide access to a variety of learning resources and to be able to individualize and personalize learning for their students. It's enabled better communication, more constant communication with parents. And it's also allowed them to find teaching resources and materials for students who have different needs, not just special education needs, but also those kids who want to, surge ahead and explore something on their very own. We've also found that since the introduction of personal tech, of smartphones in particular, into the classroom, that we've had a dramatic uptick in emotional challenges, in social challenges, and those young people, actually those social and emotional challenges. So we
Michael,
have to understand. Yes?
Michael,
Please,
sometimes the internet
yes.
is a little bit, bleeps a little bit. Could you repeat that slide? Because it's so helpful for educators to see what others are experiencing. I hope they, anyway, the internet kind of bleeps out the sound. Check it, make sure in the background you don't have something running.
I have nothing running. I'm sorry. It's
okay. It's just
anyway. I will
together.
repeat it. I'll repeat it. What we have found is that 90% of the teachers say that the number of students with emotional challenges has increased, and 86% that those with social challenges has increased, and perhaps most practically important and concerning for educators is that 85% of those teachers say that their needs for professional support of those students has gone up. It's interesting, the number of teachers who've told me about looking out at the classroom and seeing their students randomly smiling at their knees because they've got cell phones in their laps. So anyway, one of the issues that we've seen in clinical work is a real increase in what is colloquially and inaccurately known as internet or smartphone addiction. And even the World Health Organization and the American Psychiatric Association have really focused on gaming and really wondering, is gaming a disorder? Is internet gaming a disorder? We have been caring for a variety of kids really for almost 10 years now. But clinic at Boston Hospital, Media and Internet Disorders, CIMAID for short. And what we are seeing is something very different than just gaming. We're seeing gaming predominantly in boys, but also social media issues, more prevalent in girls, pornography, interestingly evenly balanced between the sexes, and what we're calling information binging, which is sort of the endless YouTube videos or Reddit or these various online information sources that lead them through all kinds of rabbit warrens of information. I've even had young people come to me saying, I'm addicted to Wikipedia. So what we're seeing is a couple of things. Number one is it's not just gaming. We're calling problematic. We do not think it is to be laid at the doorstep of the internet or of the video game or of social media. It really is our behavior that matters. And it is not the device or the application, but the interactivity that draws them in and keeps them drawn in. The other thing that we are finding is that we do not think that this is a standalone diagnosis, but that this is likely a syndrome, much the way AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, was supplanted by HIV when we understood it was human immunodeficiency virus. What we are seeing is that in virtually all of the cases we have seen, there is an underlying already established psychological disorder, such as attention deficit, anxiety disorder, relational, is driving these behaviors because this is a relatively comforting place, a place where they have mastery, whereas they don't in a classroom. So I think that it's really important to take a step back from the word addiction also, because we have a stigma, social stigma attached to the word addiction. We think of junkies in a shooting gallery or bums on Skid Row. We don't think of our 10-year-old who's having a hissy fit because he's got to stop playing Fortnite and go to bed. And this is something that can be intervened on. It should be intervened on early when it's easy to interact with it and change it. So we want to take that stigma away so that parents and kids feel safe and appropriate in reaching out to a clinician. Marcelie, you had something?
Well, sometimes the sound goes out a little bit, so I just wanted to be sure that people recognize it's problematic interactive media use rather than the term internet addiction, and that it doesn't mean it's not a problem. But to call it addiction is a challenge in the clinical world, and it means it can't happen until you're 18. I remember when you first explained that to me, I thought, oh my goodness, because I've had children, I've had boys, I've had, I called it the World of War crack, and my kids would get so mad. World of War crack again. I've gone to bed with the modem before, because anyway, it is an issue. And we had a question about how do we live together as families when we're trying to navigate this. So anyway.
Sure, absolutely. But this is basically to say that it is a problem, it is not an addiction, and help is on the way. There are that you can reach into the Center on Media and Child Health. So how do we solve this issue where these kids are in front of screens from day one? And I wanted to introduce all of you and actually welcome you, encourage you to join us in what we're calling the Digital Wellness Lab, which is loosely built on the idea of the MIT Media Lab in terms of bringing together all the stakeholders that are involved in this online space to investigate, do solid research, to translate that research into practical action steps for parents, for educators, for professionals, for media producers, and for tech developers, to have the resources to intervene when there are problems like PIMU, problematic interactive media use, to use these very powerful tools, pro-child, pro-education ways, and to do that with all of the people side by side. We've all been working in silos. We've all been thinking about these issues, but not talking to each other. And so what's happening at the Digital Wellness Lab is we're putting software engineers next to pediatricians, next to futurists, next to parents, next to youth, and saying, let's work this problem. We are in this together, and we can do it if we work together. So, Marcelie.
Okay, so you get to talk about all the fun things about supporting the things that we see that people understand, because you can tell when your students are wandering all over the place and you don't have their attention. So it's a little harder to tell when our data starts wandering and who has access to it. Years ago, educators and advocates for child safety online would say it's all about contact, content, and conduct. And I'm going to propose that those are still three very helpful. It's a helpful frame to think about not just the human interaction of contact, who has contact with our students, and what is the content that's being shared with them, and then what is the content, or the conduct between the two parties. We have to actually consider that around the data. And my heart just goes out to every single school district that all of a sudden has to throw in a digital learning experience, and many students don't have access. So when you talk about contact, many students are dealing with the challenge that, and this happens, my sister has many children, and they don't have enough devices at home for all their children and both parents who are working. So they have to stagger and set schedules, and they have to have accountability on who has which device when and what's done with it. So there's a series of challenges that go with actually just contact. And it's something to consider. When it comes to the data, so when we are making quick decisions, you know, we all know of schools that have made quick decisions and then the data was not actually well managed and it turned into a PR nightmare. My mind thinks of the school district that wanted to be sure that they could retrieve any stolen devices, so they just would randomly turn on the camera. They had the capacity to turn on cameras remotely, and then they could actually accidentally peek in on bedrooms without permission at that moment. And anyway, it is very important that we consider that commercial products are designed to add revenue through the data use. So as we consider who has access to the content, and has who can contact our students' data, that is something that, as educators, we need to be able to answer that question. That's part of what's required by FERPA and is part of our responsibility. And I know many school districts that have had to really quickly, even though they had digitized experiences and they used online learning experiences as a supplement, very few have had to be completely immersive, and that's very different. So if by any chance you have a district that has thrown some technology out and now is trying to scramble, it's okay. We understand that things happen really quickly, but it's also okay to change and morph. So if I can give you any power, it is the power to, and I say this to my kids so many times, I reserve the right to change and grow, because I have a big family, and the older will say, well, you didn't let me do that. Or the younger ones will say, you didn't make so-and-so do that. It's not fair. You're not teaching this the same. And I just put my hands on him and say, hey, I reserve the right to change and grow. And in this, especially in this time, we need to have the right to change and grow and put in a change a product or change a policy or change the way we're managing data, so that we can then we need to know where our student data goes, who can access it, and what is the impact on the content that they see. And I have this little frame. There's much more work that I'm happy to share with IEEE. If you'd like to participate with our 7004 working group, we're creating the standards so that if schools implement technology, they have a frame of things to think about ethical data use and data governance. So it's a little less ambiguous and people are just trying to guess and guess. We've got a great team working with this, and it's all volunteers. We welcome you. The provenance is the story around the data, and this is where we really recognize the gaps in our ethical data use. So as we ponder, where is the location of the child when they access and what are the legal requirements, and if it's tech coming from school or if it's tech used for school. There's some things we need to consider. Then what's the network? Do they have access? And what's the security components? The device itself, the application that sits on it, and then we get to the human behaviors. So Michael is focused on the behaviors, and good teacher training is going to focus on how we manage classroom devices, because it's different. Everything's different when we are looking through a screen rather than we have all of our senses to help us gauge our children's interest and how feeling connected they are. And there's some great opportunities with technology, and there's also just a whole lot of new things that have to be managed. So we could get into the weeds on another discussion. We will for sure have guidance with the weeds, both the behavior and the ethical behavior and the data governance coming out shortly with IEEE. So I'm thrilled for IEEE to take a leadership role here. They have nearly 500,000 members around the world, and so we can create a unified approach to thinking about implementing technology in a way that improves the health and wellness and opportunities of our children and minimize the negative unintended outcomes. Every school is doing their best right now. None of the schools are saying, I'm going to irresponsibly throw a Chromebook with no guidance and no software to help with privacy preserving or with security. Like, everybody's doing the best. So please reserve the right to change and grow. Go ahead and explain to your families that there'll be more guidance coming, that there'll be more software coming, and that's just part of how we're meeting the needs of your child. So Michael, help us with the behavior.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear your context of change and grow, being always able to change and grow with your family, because designing the wellness lab to be to allow us as a society, not just as a single industry or a single discipline or a single profession, but to bring all of those industries and professions that are touched by this and that touch this together to work the problem, to allow us collectively to change and grow, to exchange ideas, because ultimately we're all in this together. And so instead of having a single bottom line of a profit and moving product, we need a second bottom line as to recognize that we have a huge influence not only on the individuals we touch as teachers or as providers and consumers, but on the society that we live in and that they will create. And so I think that the wellness will be truly transformational, a very powerful but very siloized group into a collective group that can improve that world. The other thing about your last discussion about the child's location reminded me of the fact that one of the things that has been kicked around a lot is screen time limits. What is too much screen time? And we have realized from the data and from our clinical experience that the concept of screen time limits is obsolete. We live in a world where there are screens everywhere we go. There are screens in our pockets. We have wearables. So what this is really about is screen content and the context in which it is used. It is the media we use and how we use them that affects our behavior and affects our outcomes. And so I often say is, we spend a lot of energy and a lot of money on developing our killer apps, but we should actually be spending money on and ideas and resources on developing our killer bees. And I know Marcelly hates the idea of killer bees because they're scary,
bees.
Right?
They're
but one of the great
bees,
things,
Michael.
one of the great things about killer bees is it gets people's attention. And I have different killer bees. And those killer bees are in this screen-saturated environment. We need to learn to be balanced in our use when we are using screens and when we are not using screens. The point of screen time limits was to limit screen time, which is something that we should do. But because of what is displacing what we are on that screen, including taking a walk and being with parents and being with friends. The other thing is to be mindful in our use of these screens, to use them in purposeful, focused, directed ways, and turn them off when they're not the best tool for the job. And perhaps most importantly in this time of stay at home, be present. I think one of the biggest drains on parent-child relationship is screens right now. And it's not just the kids, it's us too. It is us staring at our smartphones. It is us checking our emails. And we are not fully present for our children, particularly around meals, et cetera. We need to be aware that our attention should be where it needs to be, and that is with those whom we love and care about. Because I'm always asked to give give practical tips instead of talking philosophy all the time. How do we manage stay at home? So I'm going to give you some take-home messages. And the first thing is, I really honestly do not like the concept of social distancing, right? It's thrown around a lot. What it really means is physical distancing. But we need to remain socially connected. And so we need to be together alone. We need to be using devices such as we are using right now to connect with each other, to be with each other. And we have to be conscious that it is physical distancing out of droplets, respiratory droplets reach that we need to be observing, but not socially disconnecting from each other. We need to be in new ways to stay. I think with our kids homeschool, it's not just the academics that they are missing, it's also the social emotional learning, which they get from messing around in the playground, from talking with their friends. And so I encourage them to have Zoom calls with their friends, to connect with each other, and to maintain and sustain and build those relationships. We have to recognize that we are not fighting an enemy the way we were after 9/11 or many other world-changing events. This is not us against them. This is us with us. And so I tell kids to flip the M. Turn the me that we've been so focused on into we. This is how we protect me, is by protecting we and protecting all of us. Because that's the way we protect. Instead of having screen times, we need to privilege the 24-hour day with our child. In other words, we have to think of the 24-hour day not as how do we restrict things, but how do we fill up that empty glass of 24 hours with enough hours of sleep, with a sit-down family meal every day, which is the single most protective thing we can do for our children's mental health as well as their nutrition. To get homework done, to get physical activity, preferably outdoors, to get social interaction, and then to see what time there is for recreational screen time. The other thing that's really important in this setting is to maintain routine, to not think of this, stay at home as an indefinite school day, but, an indefinite snow day from school, but that getting up the same, going bed at the same, and really scheduling out our day. Not being done, which is really important, especially for parents
Michael,
and kids.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?
Okay.
The sound went out, and it's so incredibly helpful. A little bit hard, but also helpful. So please repeat that.
Yes, what I was saying is that it's critical to maintain a routine with wake up and bedtimes similar to what they would do if they'd been in school, to have regular meal times, to get everything done on a regular schedule, not just so that we are productive, because the parents need to be productive, the kids need to be productive, but also to maintain stability in a very unpredictable and feeling unstable time. So that routine is really important for our own security. Encourage kids to take this as an opportunity to learn something special, to learn something they've always wanted to learn, but the school demands have not allowed them to. So my 13-year-old son is working on a sheep farm in this stay-at-home time during lambing season. So he's learning all kinds of animal biology, but also taking responsibility not just for the fun and interesting things like bottle feeding lambs, but also for mucking out stalls and for realizing that there is a whole infrastructure around any human endeavor, whether it be raising sheep or teaching children in school. So this is a great opportunity. I also have to confess that my 15-year-old has decided that he wants to learn how to pick locks. So he's ordered a lock picking set from Amazon, and while it worries a little, it does. I remind myself that he's actually very much into engineering, and I'm sure it's all about the mechanics of the locks. But anyway,
15 and boys, it's a great season.
Right. Get out. I'm encouraging kids to get outside, but I am reminding them that we cannot go to our typical places we go outside, like playgrounds. We do know that the coronavirus lives on plastic and metal for up to 3 days, so we can't climb on the monkey bars. And similarly, while they are staying at home, I think we have to control the environment somewhat. We have to limit the news because it's insecure. We don't know enough yet. I'm not saying to close it off completely. We need to be aware to those sources that are like the CDC and the WHO, but endless press conferences by whomever, but to listen to the experts like Anthony Fauci and those who really know what's going on. Because I think that we are going to see a second wave of pandemic, which is the mental health piece of this, the depression, the anxiety, and particularly for first responders like my colleagues in medicine, even post-traumatic stress disorder. This, I see, is a remarkable opportunity for kids to reframe their relationship with the internet. They have largely, to be perfectly honest, seen it as a playground, a place to play Fortnite, a place to go on social media, a place to send funny Snapchats to each other. Now is where we have to learn to connect, to communicate. And so instead of seeing, oh my God, the kids are, it's going to be Lord of the Flies online because the kids are all at home messing around, I think this is an opportunity for them to really learn how to be productive on it. And quite honestly, because it's all they have, it's actually an opportunity for them to realize how fundamentally boring it can be if you do it 24/7, and how hard it is to use it well. And how being snarky gets a little old after a while, and that they really seek out more meaningful, sustaining relationships. And finally, here is something that I really want to emphasize for all of us. We have to bring back boredom. We cannot get on an elevator or on a bus that we're willing to fill it, or cyber babble is on there.
Michael, can you just repeat that?
Yes.
Michael, the sound went out, and it's so important. So it stopped with when you get on. We can't get on a bus or get in an elevator.
We can't get on a bus or in an elevator. We can't get on a bus or in an elevator without looking at our phones. We are so averse to boredom that we fill it with whatever cyber babble is out there. Whatever is, whatever memes are trending, what news, whatever is out there. Instead of looking up and seeing the weather, seeing the sky, seeing each other, connecting with each other, meeting eyes. But also, we need to bring back boredom, not only because it is an empty space, but because it's a little uncomfortable. And what happens when it's a little uncomfortable and you have an empty space is creativity and imagination. That is where learn and think the things that haven't been thought before. And this brings me back to a bored young patent officer in Switzerland a century ago who used to walk to work beside the river looking at the eddies and swirls in the water, stamp a bunch of meaningless patent applications during the day, come back home, and write up a little thing called the theory of relativity. Late in his life, when he was asked how he came up with this amazingly comprehensive concept that no one could disprove, and they asked him how, he said, it's because I was bored, because I played in my mind. We are denying that to our children by handing them smartphones. We are not giving them the opportunity to lie on their backs in the grass and make shapes out of the clouds. And I'm worried that we will not find the Einsteins and the Picassos of the future if we are filling other people's thoughts. So I'll hand it back to you, Marcelie.
Oh, thank you so much. It's just encouraging that we don't have to all be floundering, that there is some research that we can look at. And I love that you're a practitioner. So I don't know if you caught it from the beginning of the introduction, but Dr. Rich has a clinic where he's actually seeing children who are experiencing problematic interactive media use. And he's been doing it for many, many years. The center's new, relatively new, but his practice has been around for a long time. So there's just always a difference between people who are doing research versus the ones who are also doing clinical work and looking at families, looking right at the real impact of media on children, and then helping them through some of their biggest, darkest challenges. So thank you. I want you to recognize, for those of us who are looking at the webinar, there are some incredible resources on the Center for Media and Child Health. And I'm going to refer, we had a great question that came up that was asking, well, with all the things out there, how do I choose technology that's safe for my students? And I'm going to pull back from something I learned from Michael years ago. And it's these 4 things that if your software allows you to prevent, detect, intervene, and respond to the risks, the cyber risks, if it doesn't have all 4 of those, then it's not really designed for teaching. And here's why. Because people who are going to log into an IEEE webinar for teachers, they're not very unlikely they're going not to be child abusers. I mean, child abuse goes across the sector. And when it comes to internet crimes against children, the images of children being sexually abused and sexually used are very valuable to people in the criminal space. So as educators, we're just thinking about contact and getting the right kids to the right devices. We want them to have a math tutor. We want them to have interactions with people around the world, which actually works great if the software has a vehicle in it to monitor those experiences. The hardest software for a teacher to implement are the ones where there's no way to manage the classroom to prevent, detect, intervene, or respond if there is a big, massive cyber drama going on. I wouldn't even call it cyberbullying because that's a technical term that there's a lot of variations around that. But if you're in cyber drama and you've got one student, and we never think it's going to happen. We look at the little chicks in a group of chicks and we think, oh, they're so cute. And then all of a sudden they decide one of those chicks shouldn't be alive and they turn on that chick and they peck it to death. And you're like, ah! Which I know because I have, I've been on farm life. And so it's so shocking that it can happen. So it doesn't happen often. And as educators, we need to be prepared, recognizing it can happen. And in the class setting, we need to have the capacity to turn things off and on. We need the capacity to monitor. And if we're putting adult mentors and if we have teachers with access to students one-on-one, there must be a way to be able to prevent, detect, intervene, and respond. And I asked Michael, I said, well, what's the difference between detecting and responding? Michael, what is the difference? Like, he taught me this, seriously, I think it was 17 years ago. And it's been so useful ever since.
Detecting is being aware of it and remaining able to be aware of it, observing. But responding is bringing your comeback to that. In other words, it's one thing to know about it, it's another thing to stand up. And one of the things that we know, for example, about the bullying environment is that three components are needed. And go on. And bring bystanders into upstanders who stand up for this, because they recognize not only that the victim needs to be protected, but that their culture needs to be protected, that any bullying that goes on is deteriorating their culture. It puts everyone at risk, and not only that, but it puts everyone in a more anxious, sad mode and more accepting of a confrontational and a power differential environment. I will say, and I add to the drama that you said, which is really important, is that the line between drama and cyberbullying is not so clear. And what is teasing to one child might be hurtful to another. So we have to be constantly aware of the sender-receiver issue, that what is sent may not be what is received. Where it's asynchronous, we have to be aware that something that we may think is the person who is the butt of that joke, for example, may see as quite hurtful in isolation.
Thank you. So when it comes to technology, this was also very helpful, because often it will be a teacher that detects something that's off, and it will require the data people, the people in the office, the IT office, to be able to gather some evidence and also to be able to intervene, and vice versa. Sometimes the people at the IT office can detect something, but they're not the ones. Don't ask your chief information officers or that teacher that's just good at making things work to then be the person that also has to respond to all of the social and emotional responses. So you can separate out and have people who are really good at gathering the information and surveying things that need to happen online. And then also the ones who are skilled and understand how to gather evidence, how to listen, how to not be judgmental. So it's creating your teams that are prepared. And I'm really happy to do another webinar another time, and we can go into the details about what does that look like with your team, so that you have a technical team, you have a social emotional team, you have the way to investigate. And unfortunately, because educators are so quick to want to help in that process, there's been many, many schools where there's been an investigation that then evidence that would be helpful for everyone is not admissible because of how data was managed and how evidence was managed and how devices were. So that's another conversation, and I'm happy to share with IEEE. We can go through that specifically. So I have on this slide, there is a wonderful resource that Dr. Rich has put together, and it's called Talking to Kids About Coronavirus. But I would say for educators, it's also a godsend. And there are 3 videos. You can't get to them until you actually find this PDF and open it up, and then you'll see he is doing a point-counterpoint discussion with his counterpart in Canada. Is this Canada, the Canadian doctor, correct?
Correct. Yes, he's a Canadian educator. He's an educator.
Okay, great. He's an educator. All the better. So it's such a great resource, and it will help you in the short term. In the long term, the 7004 IEEE series, creating some guidance around the actual technical integration of how do we implement, and then how do we shape the support around that. That's going to be very helpful, and I'm thrilled to see IEEE take the lead on that. I think they're the ideal organization because they circle the globe, and they're the people in the communities that make things work, and they make things work for people to be healthy and well. So it's such a pleasure. And Dr. Rich had some articles that I thought just even the titles were great, and I want you to be sure to know that you can find them. I love this one about, could families bond around the TV like they used to? You know, what are some of the things that we're actually... I have not watched TV for a long time because everything I watch is online. But I'm here on the farm with my mom. My mom, she doesn't watch stuff online very often. So we actually, I go to her in the evening and say, hey, Mom, what's going on with whatever? And we sit down and we'll watch a show together. We haven't done that in, I don't know, 25 years, 30 years. And I think there are opportunities that we haven't had for a while that this is a refresher. And also some good guidance on screen time limits. what does that actually mean? Because it's obsolete, and you'll have to read the article to find out more, but it's very helpful. The coronavirus capability of working, parenting, teaching from home, more specific guidance. So anyway, I highly recommend it. And we're not alone in this. There are supports for educators in the technical side and also support for the human side. And the best advice I have found, it comes consistently from people who are both academic and clinicians, so that I can feel like this is not a PR component. This is not, they're not selling a product. It's actual guidance that is based on science. So you can go to Ask the Pediatrician, and there's a series of podcasts, which I highly recommend. And when we're looking in at our school community, we can consider the same things we're doing emotionally and creating supports and intervening and responding, we actually have to do with the technology. And it's not enough to just say, well, everybody's using this platform, so we'll just use it in this setting. If we don't have the capacity, if you don't have the capacity to know that you can prevent, detect, intervene, and respond against online predators or misuse of the trust environment that you've created. And that also comes with the advertising. If you're about to implement a technology and you don't know if immediately, if those children are going to now have an ad profile, and there's not a place for parents to opt out and for you to opt out, because depending on the state, there are a lot of specific rules now about children and advertising. Some states you can't even use a platform with ads in the education setting. And many, many products, as soon as you sign up, you get stuck in a bucket, and that becomes a profile. And you'll want to be able to navigate which of the technology is been reviewed. And unfortunately, you have to have some teams of people looking at those privacy statements. And then we can hope the companies align the privacy statement with, they say they do what they say. But for sure, we need to take a look. And for me, the fastest way to know if it's really safe for students. Now, it's different for parents, because if you're the parent, you're taking the risk. But since as educators, we're taking the legal responsibility for the children on the technology, then it means we need to be sure we can prevent, detect, intervene, and respond against misuse for ads and also misuse for contact, content, and conduct. And then also recognize how our students' data is used will shape the web experience that comes to them, because the internet is not a broad broadcast that everyone gets. We are limited by the size of our machine. So industry takes ad revenue and ad content, and that's what gets shoved in through our screen. So if you live in an area where there's low resources, you're going to get ads for fast food, bail bonds, how to protect yourself with karate. You're not going to get those ads and those images about travel, about photography, about remortgages, because the assumption is in some communities you own a home and others that you're running for your life, for safety. And it sets a set of expectations. The data does. So social norming through what you see online, through these two screens, creates a mindset that limits a child. So it's important that we consider how that data is used. So we have time for, I think, just a couple of questions. I've tried to read the questions while Michael was speaking so we could address them. Jennifer, such a pleasure. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I just want to thank both of you. This has been fascinating and so helpful today.
You're home with teenagers, too. You're home with teenagers.
I am. I'm home with 3 teenagers myself. And I was taking notes.
I love the comment from Ruben at the Malta College of the Arts. He says it takes a whole village to raise a child, which that I steal from both the African proverb when I say it now takes a global village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say we actually have a global village online today. I was looking through where people are, and we do have educators from all over the world that have been participating today. And we very much appreciate all of you being here, and hopefully you've gained some good information. And please be sure to take a look at the resources that are available to you in the resources portal on your screen, because there's a lot more in there that you can use to continue to learn about this topic. I'm going to throw, we only have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to just throw one more question out there that I see in here that I think would be helpful. The question is, as an educator, there are many challenges in implementing online teaching. Do you have any resources that you can share with educators as we continue to improve online teaching for our children? I know you guys shared a lot of resources. Is there anything else specifically that you think teachers in particular should be looking at as they are continuing the switch to online education?
I can actually offer my experience. One of the reasons that I work with my colleagues in Canada is that they and Australia actually probably have the best developed remote learning systems that I know of in the world, mainly because they often have far-flung students and they have to do distance learning. And so that discussion that I've had around coronavirus that was featured in Marceli's part of the talk is a good one. It also has links to the Alberta Teachers Association and our colleagues there, Dr. Philip McRae. I would recommend reaching out to our Australia, because they have worked out, whereas the rest of us are currently struggling to convert.
To repeat that. Could you repeat that, because I got cut off? Thanks.
Yeah, I would urge us to reach out to colleagues in Canada and Australia in particular who have worked out remote learning, because they have many far-flung students. So they've been doing it for years. So instead of us trying to reinvent the wheel and translate what we're doing in the classroom into remote learning, we can learn a lot about the infrastructure that they have developed to make this an effective learning environment. And I would particularly recommend the Alberta Teachers Association, which, if I may toot their horn, is actually the highest ranked education system in the English-speaking world. So from colleagues to the north.
Thank you. Well, and with that, I think we have just about reached the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone who has joined us today. Again, I encourage you to download the resources. I would very much like to thank our two speakers today. This has been wonderful information, and I so appreciate both of you taking the time to share your knowledge so freely with our audience today. Is there anything, Joanna, that you want to throw in there before we wrap it up?
I do. I want to say that, same as you, thank you to our speakers for joining us today. But before you leave, please don't forget to complete our feedback survey via the teal survey tool at the bottom of your screen. And don't forget to register for our next event. If you look at the resource list, we do have another IEEE Tech Talk next Wednesday at 9 a.m. We also have an event on April 21st at 9 a.m., Strategies for Effective Delivery of Online Engineering Courses. You can register via the links in the resource list, and I hope everyone has a great day.
And I would love to invite any of you listening to join us in the Digital Wellness Lab. This is something that we can solve together. And yes, we can. We can do it, but we've got to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.
Stay tuned. IEEE 7004 will have additional resources specifically for educators. So yeah, more is coming, and IEEE is such a great trusted organization and nonprofit in all the best ways to be able to get information to schools that they can believe in, and also help the tech side too. It's nice to see the two come together.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks. Have fun with your kids.
Thank you, everyone.
Have fun with your kids.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.